the most important metric of our longevity into our 80s, our health and vitality into our 80s, is the strength of our social connections in our 50s.
Yep.
So many people don't know that. So many people haven't been granted the grace to be in community where their whole self is welcomed.
Yeah.
Wish more people knew how well received they would be if they were just open.
Welcome to the Midlife Chrysalis podcast with Chip Conley, where we explore how midlife isn't a crisis, but a chrysalis, a time of profound transformation that can lead to the most meaningful chapter of your life.
Hello, it's Chip Conley, and this is the Midlife Chrysalis. Welcome. I am so excited to introduce you to Christine Sperber, one of my two co-founders of MEA, somebody who has been right by my side for 8 years now in creating a movement around aging and longevity and wisdom and learning TQ, transitional intelligence. I love her dearly. I mean, we don't always agree on things, although we were actually pretty agreeable today. But I think for those of you who are just curious about MEA in particular, hearing the origin story of Christine, because she was literally the first person I went to and said, I want you on my team to make this happen. So I think you'll enjoy that part. I think you'll also enjoy, as an adventure athlete and somebody who has defined herself often by her body and what her body can do. You know, people who are professional athletes and people who are fashion models and often get to that place of obsolescence earlier in their career. And so she learned a lot from that as well. So I think you'll enjoy the banter back and forth, and look forward to hearing your thoughts later. Christine Sperber!
Hi, Chippy.
Hi.
How are you?
Oh my gosh. Everybody look at her. Like, this is a 55-year-old woman,
56?
56-year-old woman who is living her best life. And you look so happy.
I am so happy.
Yeah.
Thank you. I mean, minus the state of the world
Yeah.
but
Well, let's talk about the state of Christine Sperber.
yeah.
And so, for those who don't know you, let's start by saying you are one of my two co-founders. You're really the first person I went to when MEA was just a weird idea in my head. And of course, I thought it was going to be just a tiny little thing. And oh, well, that was, that was a Chipism. But let's go back to your upbringing and your life as a performance athlete and ski bum and how you got to where you are now, but especially how you got to Baja, because that's really where you and I first met.
So where's the best place to start? I was raised going on ski vacations.
In New Jersey.
In New Jersey.
Yeah.
Right? Not tons of ski vacations, always enough to always be an intermediate skier. And went to school for a year in New England. And while I was in school in New England, we went on a ski trip. And so here I am, intermediate skier. All the people I was with were great skiers. And I saw snowboarding for the first time at Sugarloaf Mountain in Maine.
And how old were you?
I was probably 17, 18 years old. And it was incredible. I was sitting on the side of the run thinking about how uncomfortable I was, how I wanted to be a better skier, all the things, the confronting things when you ski. And Sugarloaf is incredibly cold, and East Coast conditions are challenging at best. That's why the best skiers come out of the East Coast, because you have to have skills. You have to have edge skills. These three guys went by, and they're called the knoll. Like, it's a kind of a rollover on a hill, and it's a really easy place to get air. And just three in a row, they came through, one after the other, jumped off this little knoll and rode away. And I was like enchanted. I was obsessed. I had to do it. Ended up dropping out of school the next year, moving to Breckenridge, Colorado, which was one of the few places that allowed snowboarding at that point. And more than allowed, embraced. Breckenridge and the history of snowboarding are intertwined forever. And so I moved to Breckenridge, learned to snowboard, and it just went from there.
And you became a professional.
I did. I've been watching a lot of snowboarding lately, and it almost feels disrespectful to call what we did snowboarding compared to what they're doing.
Because they've really evolved.
It is incredible. I mean, there are 14-year-old girls. Really, they're at 14, you are a girl, doing unbelievable things on a snowboard. It's so inspiring. I could watch it all day long.
Are you excited for the Olympics coming up?
I am excited for the Olympics, although I have to say, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds about it, when we first went to the Olympics as a sport, it was definitely a muddy path. There were 2 different
Mhm.
governing bodies. We'd had our own. There was kind of snowboarder created and managed, and then the pathway to the Olympics was granted to the ski industry governing body to take athletes in, and so that created a tension and being close enough to the IOC to see really what a merciless business it
Oh,
is
yeah.
and what a commodity you are as an athlete.
Mm.
I grew up, like, watching Nadia Comaneci
So
and,
much,
like,
yeah,
just idolizing the Olympics, so it was a little bit heartbreaking
to
to see
see it.
the business
Yeah.
of the Olympics. I've kind of come far enough now that I can tap a little bit back into the idealism of it.
Mhm, mhm.
It's still incredible, that size of that stage. Yeah.
So what brought you from Breckenridge and Colorado, and the ski bum life down to Baja?
I was tired. I was tired. I'd been in Breckenridge for over 20 years and working constantly. When I left college, and all credit to my parents, they said, "You have a year to get back in school, and if you're not back in school in a year, you are cut off. And in this time that you are not in school, you are completely on your own." And they held me to that. So I was 18 years old in Colorado. I moved there with $2,000 I'd saved up over the summer, and I supported myself. And at the end of that first year, I was not ready to go back to school. They graciously extended another year. I did not make it back again because I had started snowboarding and getting paid to snowboard
Yeah.
at that point. So I'd been in the snowboard industry for about 20 years
Wow.
and been living at 9,600 feet and spending most of the year on snow, whether it was up on the snowfield in Oregon or Southern Hemisphere.
Mm,
And a little disillusioned with snowboard industry at
mm.
that point as an aging woman in snowboarding.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to take a break.
Yeah.
So I went down to Baja to take a 5-month sabbatical. And from the time I moved out of my parents' house, Chip, I think I was 17, I might have been 18. I had a mortgage payment or a rent payment due every single month
Mhm.
of my life. And that didn't feel bad. It just felt like my reality, right?
Mhm.
And I was essentially paycheck to paycheck most of that time. And I decided I needed a break. And I rented my house, which is basically ski in, ski out in Breckenridge because I've been there for so long. And it gave me enough money to go take 5 months off
Hmm.
in Baja. So it was just my sabbatical
And you ended up in Todos Santos or in
in
Pescadero?
Pescadero.
Okay, in Pescadero, which is where our MEA campus is. And what was your first experience of Mexico and Baja and Pescadero in particular? What year was this?
It was 2008.
Yeah.
Was
So this is during the early stage of the Great Recession. The world is falling apart, and you've moved to a rural, part of Mexico that frankly didn't have much in the way of roads. There was not really a good highway between Todos Santos and Cabo San Lucas at that time.
or Todos Pescadero,
Yeah.
even, going out for dinner in Todos Santos was spicy. To
Mm.
get on that highway at night, it hadn't been re-engineered, it hadn't been, um, paved well, filled with animals. It was incredible. It was incredible to be there in 2008. Absolutely. A friend of mine had purchased a piece of land. Tony Wilson, thank you. You changed my life. Friend of mine from Breckenridge. I told him I wanted to go to Baja, and he said, "Oh, and he's an old surfer. He's a swimmer, incredible athlete. And he said, "I've got this surf camp I bought years ago. You should go stay on it." And it was a piece of land in Pescadero right next
Was
to
it the
Sage.
Pescadero Surf Camp?
No,
No.
no, it was just what he called the surf camp. He had
Okay.
created, like, he'd gone enough times that his design was flawless,
Hmm.
really. He'd built a bodega that was so lockable with an interior room that was lockable where he left all the surfboards and all the equipment to set up an outdoor kitchen. There was palapa and there was proper bathroom. Everything was pressure fed, so an off-grid retreat with everything that you need. And so I lived there for 5 months, basically, camping, view of the beach. We had, like, this game where you could win and to win, you had to see a whale from the outdoor kitchen, from the tent, and from the shower.
Oh,
That was
wow.
that was how you won. It was all 3 in one day. That was like the triple. I mean, it must have been 4 because there was a home run, but yeah, so we could see whales from the
So I got to meet you right around. We actually started emailing with each other in Christmas of 2011.
Mhm.
And I met you, I think, the first time on the streets. Literally, you closed down a street in Todos Santos to do a New Year's Day yoga
Yeah.
experience.
Yep.
And there were, I don't know, dozens and dozens and dozens, maybe even hundreds of people. I don't remember. But there were a lot of people there. And I was like, wow, this Christine knows people. And she ultimately, you and Josh had something called a key, which was a yoga pavilion. So when I got to know you, I was just starting to get to know the area. By the time 2012 came around and you were there now 4 years off and on,
Mhm.
did you still love it?
Still loved it.
Yeah. What did
I
you love
still love it.
and what do you love most about it?
I mean, the thing that struck me, I think, when I first got down there was just the sheer freedom it
Mm,
felt like of being in the place, and I think we probably made every, dumb choice that people make when they're first confronted with vast amounts of Baja freedom, like
mm.
just driving like an asshole, like slow down. All that dust is bad for the crops, but it
Yeah.
just felt like no one's watching and this is joy and this is freedom. And I can drive my old truck with the windows down and my dog's hanging out of the windows and drinking a beer and it's icy cold and the air is dry and dusty. It just all felt like kind of this sensory overload of freedom and joy, and we built big fires, and then later it's like, "Oh god, everyone has palapa roofs, like,
Yeah.
just relax," but definitely it definitely felt like freedom and just raw health,
Mm,
to have a break, to be warm, to live in a place where you really do follow all the natural cadence in Baja,
mm,
or you can. I think now with the amount of construction and building and business that happens there, it's easier to divorce yourself, but
mhm.
especially those first few years, I always knew exactly where, we were in moon cycle because I lived outside in a tent,
Mhm.
or under a tree
Mhm.
often. The weather is really present, the crops are really present.
Yep.
What is fresh? Because that's what we're eating. There's no Cisco truck coming through,
Yeah.
Then when that first project that you and I worked on, someone said,
Yeah.
"I've got this great idea, we'll do a farms to table restaurant." And I was like, "Every restaurant here is
It's
farm
part of
to
the table,
table.
exactly.
It's the only kind of restaurant we can have here." So, it was playing outside all day, being in the ocean all the time, and
Mm.
I had this little motorcycle that Tabine has now. I gave it to
Ah,
Octavio
sweet.
and our staff in Baja, that I would ride my motorcycle into township from, like, the beach into the town of Pescadero and pay 20 pesos an hour to plug my computer in with, like, an Ethernet cable.
So it's like a
Use
dollar
the
an
internet.
hour?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
Uh-huh.
was 20 pesos an hour, which was $2 an hour then, I think.
Oh, it's too oh, wow.
Yeah, 20 pesos an hour to, update my blog and to tell my mom I was okay. I mean, there was service had only come to the beach a few years, like, maybe 5 years before
Oh, wow.
we got there. There was a guy who would, like, drive around and sell fish. It was very quiet,
Yeah.
very rural. Here's the thing, there were 7, and I think I have this right, in 2008, 2009, there were 7 houses for sale between Todos Santos and Pescadero, and Richie Amigo told me that that was, like, 3 years' worth of inventory at that point, right? It was just slow.
Yeah.
Would ride bikes around, I'd see deer on the back road in
Mm. Yeah.
Cerritos, and yeah,
Yeah.
it was really a joyous, wild time, and the saying was that everyone in Baja at that point was either wanted or unwanted.
Yeah. And it's a sunny place for shady people.
Yeah.
If you're enjoying the conversations we've been having on the Midlife Chrysalis, I have a valuable offer for you to consider. My book, Learning to Love Midlife 12 Reasons Why Life Gets Better with Age, is a national bestseller. And right now, you can get a copy for just the cost of shipping. It offers stories, research, and practices to help you move from a midlife crisis to a midlife catalyst and see this stage of life not as a decline, but an opportunity to flourish. Claim your copy today at meawisdom.com/midlife book. So I got to know you. We were working on a project together, and then you threw my 55th birthday party with a lot of friends in Pescadero,
Mhm.
and I saw what a supreme experienced designer you are. How you are, as I've said many times, you are the best experienced designer I've ever met in my life. Let's talk a little bit about what experience design is, because we're very, as a culture, we're really good about giving attention to artists and to architects and to designers of products and industrial products. But when it comes to experience design, like, who are the most famous experience designers in the world? They exist, but they don't have a name.
Yeah.
And so, what does it take to be a great experience designer?
I mean, I never thought about myself as that until you called me that. What I was trying to do, what I try to do with anything is to create the kind of world I wanna live in, right? And so your birthday party, you gave me so much leeway
Mm.
to create what I wanted to create. And up to that point, I'd worked on different hospitality projects and had a lot of leash, but not quite as much. And I think the components that made your birthday so special were the freedom to create ritual that was meaningful not just for you and not just for the participants, but also for the creators.
Mm.
And I think when there's that level of thoughtfulness and richness that you're considering kind of all the inputs, you're considering the economic impact on the creators and on the community, and also what that experience will be like for your user. All of that contributes to an energy that's different than just serving someone kind of an à la carte, like, "Here, do this thing."
Mhm.
You can feel, I think you feel the genuineness of the intention and all the different points of meaning. So, and that's what I tried to do here at the ranch as
Mhm.
well. It's
Mhm.
not just about thinking about that end user and giving them something.
Mhm.
It's about the entire ecosystem. If you're gonna do it, like, involve the whole
Well,
ecosystem.
and the sequencing of it, like,
Yeah.
this leads to this, leads here at the ranch, we have the very well-loved ridge, hike,
Yeah.
which is on the last full day's morning,
Yeah.
early in the morning, and I remember the first time you said this to me, it was like, "Oh, okay, well, a ridge hike really early in the morning, what about in the winter?" Like, "Oh, no." And I remember when you back in the early days of Baja, you said, "Well, we're gonna actually bake bread," and so as someone who is completely, an imbecile in the kitchen, I was like, "Really? Baking bread?" So, talk about baking bread for a minute, because and then we'll go back to the origin story of how MEA started, but what is it about baking bread with a group of people that actually creates the kind of experience that is memorable and ritual and really, beautiful?
The timeliness of this question is excellent because, December 15th through 20th was the first time any of us, I'm the first co-founder to ever do a workshop as a compadre. I
Yes.
went down and just took it as a
And this was for
guest.
Dacher
This was
Keltner's,
for Keltner.
Cultivating Awe workshop.
And I have leaned on Dacker's work for years. I co-taught a few workshops with him over the years. And so, I mean, just like it blew my mind, literally blew my mind the first time that he taught anything. So I went down as a compadre and I got to be on the other side of the ritual,
Mhm.
and such props to the crew in Baja and to Barb Tint and Jed Tarlow, who were the facilitators of the group, and Dacker. They all pretended that I was just a compadre. They didn't
Yeah.
call me out during the week, and so I really did get to participate. It kind of filtered through the week, and I was pretty well outed at the end as the person who had created, the tempo of the week and the ritual, but I got to bake bread as a compadre and be
And
part
how
of it.
was it?
It was so fantastic. The impetus for the bread baking was, as it ties each person in the cohort together because the dough that you receive was made from the team the day before. And then you receive that dough and you prepare it, and then you bake it and you serve your fellow compadres,
Mm.
and then you create the dough that's used the next day. So it creates this chain of kind of creativity and terror for a lot of people. Um, so many people are faced with like, I don't know how to bake bread.
Yeah.
You and I both know now,
Yeah.
8 years of doing this, it is the most resilient recipe.
Yes, it is.
Shout out to uh, the Sullivan Street Bakery 24-hour no need, 24-hour rise recipe from the New York Times. Um, but it is really an opportunity for people to be a beginner
Mhm.
in a low stakes way that doesn't feel low stakes
Mm.
in the moment. It is competitive and collaborative and really confronts people. The collaboration piece,
Mm.
watching the way that a group works together to kind of not like kind of nudge in and nudge out and find their way together and what ingredients we're going to put in, how will we present it. There's so many opportunities to collaborate, to
Well,
retreat
and
and
and for those who haven't been to MEA, in Baja, basically each morning there's a small group, usually, 4 or 5 people, that are actually doing this together, and then they're presenting it after the morning wisdom circle. And the wisdom circle can be sort of deep and emotional, and then we do this celebratory thing, and they actually present, usually with music or poems, and it's really a joyous experience
yeah,
that had a collaboration component really built into it.
yeah.
So
Both with like the group before you and after you,
yeah.
and then intensely with the people that you are baking the bread with and presenting in a creative way, hopefully. And I mean, you and I have seen everything
Oh my
from
god.
original music,
Yeah, yeah,
costumes. It's endless plays, poetry, original prose. I mean, it is it is quite
yeah.
joyous.
So let's go back to the origin story because we're a little ahead of ourselves there because I just wanted to talk about that, and your experiences, I know that. But so you threw this, in 2015, this remarkable birthday party for me around Halloween, my birthday, and by the way, Christine is also a Scorpio and November 7th baby, and so and then I started to fall in love with the area and found a home and bought it, and Oren, my partner, renovated it, and, lo and behold, I'm now a neighbor for Christine, and I'm living down there, and then as we were creating the home, I one day went for a run on the beach, and I had this Baja aha, this
Mhm.
epiphany of, I'd been working at Airbnb and seeing this intergenerational collaboration. I was working on a book called Wisdom at Work: The Making of a Modern Elder, and I had this weird feeling like, why is it that we don't have midlife wisdom schools? Why don't we have a place for people to come and reimagine themselves in midlife? And I came to you, and I just sort of like said, yeah, and like, you're not going to make much money doing this, but
It's gonna be this little
it's going to be a
project.
little project, yeah, I guess. And we decided that we were going to do. Ultimately, we did 13 beta cohorts over the course of 6 months. So
Mhm.
approximately one every other week, although there was a time when you did 7 weeks in a row, and Christine was deeply
Still
involved in all
recovering.
these. Yeah, I know. And let's go back to that story. Like, what did you think? Like when I came to you and said, like, here's this weird idea. Let's throw a parade. Let's put on a show.
I mean, I thought you were daft, right?
I
Like,
am.
proudly.
Yes.
I'm 10 years younger than you are.
Right.
I had a deep respect for your kind of zeitgeist meter.
Mm,
And so, I mean, you track your career, you see shifts before other people.
mm,
So, I knew there was credibility in the idea, but it didn't resonate for me
right.
as an athlete and someone who'd spent a lot of time in ski towns.
And you were in your 40s, late 40s at that point. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. 40, you were
I was
probably
like 40.
46 or 47.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. The
Um,
low point of the U curve of happiness we came to learn later.
I thought, you said people struggle with purpose in midlife and retirement is hard. And I thought, I don't know the same people you know.
No, exactly, exactly.
But what's interesting, Chip, is that my community has caught up now to what we're doing. So I don't know if it's cultural, if it's the 10-year age difference,
Yeah.
if it's, cultural climate, but you were definitely on it long before I was. I thought, interesting idea for Pescadero as an economic engine. That
Mhm.
was really my
Beautiful.
my impetus, my motivation when we started it was how do we create a lot of opportunity right here? How do we create a middle class in Pescadero? You know, um, hospitality operations were starting, high-end hospitality operations were starting, but not with the same kind of lens that we brought to it,
Yeah.
which is let's really treasure these people. Let's really dignify this as a job and a life. Let's respect
Mhm.
that they have lives outside of this and children and ultimately we're all buying the same gas.
Mm.
So as much as there's kind of a tiered economic system in much of Mexico, you gave us the freedom to really begin to level that playing field.
Mm.
And so I was interested of like, what could we do for this place I'd fallen in love with for the
Yeah.
last 10 years?
Yeah. And
And
Christine was a magnet. I mean, Christine attracted Tony, our chef, who was really maybe the first employee
Eva.
beyond you, and Alondra, who, Christine had worked with her mother at launching another hotel down the beach from us earlier, and a whole collection of people. And you built the culture. You built a beautiful culture.
Thank you.
So you're not just an experienced designer, you're a culture builder. And for those who have been to either one of our campuses, if you love the culture, the person who deserves the credit for that more than anybody else is the person sitting across from me right now. What did you learn in those first 6 months of the beta when we were trying to figure out, okay, what is the content? What's the curriculum for a program dedicated to helping people reimagine themselves in midlife? Yeah, what were some of the key lessons? And you talked earlier before we started the show here about some of the lessons you learned from academics that actually related to your own life and
Yeah.
your as a ski bum.
Yeah. I mean, it really amazing to get to sit in these rooms for the last 8 years with these academics and thought leaders who give kind of credibility and language to things that I've felt kind of intrinsically as an athlete and as a ski town person. And but I would to go back to your question about the big lessons, so Jeff joined us early. Jeff
Mhm.
Hamwee was part of our first beta cohort, and I remember going to you and saying, like, "We need this guy.
Yeah,
I think we
you
need this
did.
guy,
Yeah.
Chip." And he was so intentional about the way that we curated the content. Remember how he wanted to use appreciative inquiry to
Yeah.
learn what it is that people wanted to learn, and he was so clear about not knowing what a midlife wisdom school should look like.
Right, right.
And so how do we harvest that information? And I think that's been a really important lesson
Mhm.
in you don't need to know.
No,
You
it's a
do.
process, a journey,
Yeah.
and you're learning it with each other.
Yeah, and take great questions and learn from great questions. And our challenge and gift has always been that African proverb of if you want to go fast,
Yeah.
go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Our cadences and strengths are so different
Yeah.
as a co-founder team. So that was also a lot of learning, right? We had to learn how to work together, and I think that creative tension is really what made the magic.
And challenge. I mean, like,
Yeah.
you and I have had our moments, and
Yeah.
you and
Am
Jeff
I the most triggering person for you?
No, definitely not.
Really?
No, President Trump is. Okay. You're second. No, I'm kidding.
We're both 8s.
No, yeah, yeah, you're both 8s on the Enneagram. You're both bosses.
Oh,
No,
which
you're not.
kills
No,
me.
no,
I
no,
hate having anything in common with him.
no. Yeah, I mean, I think what's interesting is that when you're on a project that, it's like Rashomon, the famous Japanese movie where, all these guys are all, I think, touching the elephant, different parts of the elephant. And, depending upon which part of the elephant you're touching, you have a different point of view. And so the three of us at times had different points of view, and all of them pretty good, actually. And it was the synthesis,
Yeah.
the synthesizing of those different ideas. I would never have come up with the bread as something. I, in some ways, you were the heart, Jeff was the soul, and I was a little bit of the brain. I was more the brain, and we all had each of those qualities.
Mhm.
So, but for me, I'd be more the academic, and I would see like, okay, well, I want some Phil Pizzo in here, some Stanford medical school stuff about purpose and
Yeah.
community and wellness. And then you would, like, as you said to me earlier today, is like, well, gosh, that's how I was living.
Right.
So talk about that a little bit about, as you were learning the academic side of all of this, you were also seeing in your own life that some of this was true in your own life.
Absolutely. I mean, again, I keep talking about Ski Town, but I moved to Breckenridge when I was 18 years old, and it really in so many ways formed who I am as an adult. And in ski towns, life is purpose driven. People make choices to often live with less financially, not
Mhm.
always, and of
Mhm.
course, I think COVID has changed a lot of that. But you know, it was not uncommon in the late 80s and early 90s to meet someone who chose to wash dishes and not use their PhD because they
Mm,
wanted to be in nature all day long.
mm,
And so priorities were quite different in a ski town than
mhm.
I had grown up with in, New Jersey, and
Yeah,
where it seemed like every dad worked on Wall Street. And
yeah.
so, again, in these ski towns where people are fiercely independent. They're choosing perhaps a different financial path and prioritizing community and health and vitality and nature and awe and all the things that,
Mhm,
again, we come back to having these academic lessons around the importance of awe, the importance of community. Now, research has proven that Summit County, Pitkin County, and I forget what county Vail is in, but the 3 counties kind of right in Colorado where I lived
yeah.
have the longest
The
so
longevity,
yeah,
highest longevity, yeah.
in the entire country.
Yeah.
So as I started to spend time in Baja, I never took my foot entirely out of Breckenridge
Mm.
because I was afraid if I left a ski town, I would get old.
Mm,
And that was just an intrinsic feeling. It wasn't anything anyone told me. And then we meet Stephen Kotler, and
yeah.
he tells us about, action sports keeping people young and these longevity statistics. And again, it all felt like it really justified what I knew, what I
Mm.
lived. And now that I've taken some more time to have a personal life again, and I'm spending more time back in that community, feels very powerful to have
Mm,
language and research and knowledge
mhm,
around why these things are important and why they're healthy,
mm,
and also, ski towns are not exclusively healthy places.
mm.
There's high suicide
A
rates in
lot
a
of
lot of ski
drinking,
towns,
yeah, a lot of yeah.
although that has changed culturally in a really
Very
big way.
much, especially with the younger people.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, back in our day, younger people were drinking a lot, and today, the ski bums who are young are not.
yeah,
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 so
there's just not a lot
they're
of
not having
interest in it.
sex either. I mean, like, what
I
is
mean,
this?
phew,
What is this? Okay, we're not
poor babies.
yeah, I know. Maybe
Use
those
that beautiful
maybe
young
those go
body.
together, the lack of alcohol, the no sex, I don't know, maybe there's something about that. What kind of path are you carving through midlife? Our free Midlife Pathfinder quiz helps you discover which of 8 archetypes best describe your approach to this stage of life and what that means for your next chapter. It only takes a few minutes and your results may surprise you. Find out your archetype now. It's quick, it's fun, and it might help you see your journey in a whole new light. Take the Pathfinder quiz at meawisdom.com/quiz. So, your relationship with getting older, your relationship with aging, your relationship with midlife,
Yeah.
you both from the point of view as a facilitator and faculty member at MEA and your own personal experience. How has your relationship with aging evolved in the last 8 years?
I mean, I would expect that I would be an outlier spending the last 8 years in this space of reframing aging with you and Jeff and our
Yeah.
whole team and the incredible crew of academics and thought leaders and teachers that we've cultivated over time. I never I never honestly never really worried about it. I never wanted to live.
Although you did say you didn't wanna leave, be a ski bum leave being a ski bum because you didn't wanna get old.
Right, well, I didn't wanna I old is probably the wrong word. I didn't want to become less vital, right? Like,
Mm.
that vitality, you see these people in their 80s in
Mhm.
ski towns, like,
Yeah.
go up to ski Santa Fe
Yeah.
on a powder day,
Yeah.
and they are frothing. They are the retirees in line waiting for the lifts to open, right? And they're
And they're 80
old.
years old.
They're 80 years old, and
Yeah.
they're ripping, and they're gonna
Yeah.
cut you off to get the good powder, like, I love that. I wanna be around that energy,
Yeah.
So there is something special, there's something awe-inducing about a powder day. It's a precious thing. It also feels quite, like, light and indulgent, as we touched on in the beginning, of our talk. The state of the world feels
Mhm.
quite
Mm.
heavy and
Yeah.
unjust and scary and destabilized, and so I know we need awe in our lives, but sometimes it does feel a little indulgent to talk about skiing and snowboarding when
Well,
we have a whole world to save.
yeah, we do, and we're not even gonna try that on this episode, but let's go back to try to save aging,
Yeah.
and your midlife experience. So, how have you had a midlife chrysalis along the way? A low point that And we all have them.
Right.
And let's be really clear that this U curve of happiness shows the averages at, 45 to 52
Sure.
is the low point. But the truth is we have them all the time. It's just that the trajectory in our lives as we get older tends to be the lows maybe are a little bit less low and the highs are a little bit higher. Without me being too personal, like how have you addressed your midlife chrysalis? And you're one of the leading experts on the team around transitions. What have you learned personally around transitions?
I'm so grateful. I think a lot about the toolkit that I went into my true midlife with,
Yeah.
again, because we did this work that I have admitted to you I was not all that interested in doing
Yeah.
when we started, coming at it from a different angle than you were. I feel like my first really big, like, crisis came in my late 20s when I went from being a professional athlete to being a citizen, and I learned the really hard lesson at that point about the danger of entangling your identity and your career.
Mhm.
Because, and Aaron Taylor, our dear Aaron Taylor talks about this a lot
Yeah.
in that crash that NFL players often have, right? You are your career, you are your title
Yep.
when you're a professional athlete. So to to learn that hard lesson in my 20s, I feel like really helped me
Yeah.
in midlife. Of course, I still went through perimenopause. I lost my mom. While we were starting MEA, I didn't have any idea what perimenopause was, right? I remember being in, we did these long ideation meetings, remember in COVID, where like, what are we going to do? We closed the academy.
Yep.
What are the good ideas? And we would sit for hours and think about and talk about. And remember that we had that one room with the
Yes.
post-it
Upstairs.
notes
Upstairs. Yeah.
covering the
Oh,
walls.
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
fascinating time. What an incredible
Yeah.
luck we had to be able to do that kind of creative,
Yeah.
imagining. But I remember distinctly in those meetings being like, why don't Chip and Jeff ever need to use the bathroom? Like, why do I have to pee 4 and 5 times in these
Yeah.
meetings? What is going on? What's going on with my body? Why am I tired? Why am I
Why am I so hot?
aging?
Yeah, yeah.
The hot flashes are kind of everybody knows. I think that's
Yeah.
coming. That was like the marquee
Yeah.
symptom. Like,
Yeah.
oh, you're in menopause. We didn't even know. I didn't even have the right language. I don't think most of us had the right language at that point for perimenopause and menopause. So to be going through the startup, our very intense startup of the academy, my mom was dying of cancer during that time, breast cancer. I was traveling back and forth. I was deeply in perimenopause. I was in personal, like my marriage was not going well at
Yeah.
that point. I'm really curious if I had understood perimenopause and the impacts of that, what that would have meant for my relationship. Although I wouldn't change anything. But it was just, going into things with knowledge is so different.
Mm.
And I think that my generation, I hope, is the last generation that ever faces perimenopause without tons of information.
Yeah.
I feel like there's a lot of people doing really great work,
Mhm.
changing that situation. So here I come to, I would say, that was all like 46 to
Mhm.
55 really,
Yep.
was the physical changes, intensity at work, and then the dissolution of my marriage, which
Yeah.
was, I do feel very proud about the way that we dissolved our relationship, lots of
Mhm.
respect between us and
Mhm.
friendship. But, here I am, a gray wave. Oh, and then, as you know, last November, I had a hip replacement,
Yeah.
which I had no idea was coming. I was in November of 24, not of 25.
Yep.
That was shocking.
Mm.
I mean, and what a miracle that surgery is. I was limping pretty much full time
Mm.
by the time that I had the surgery, and I got to go up and do that at Stedman in Vail, and those guys take care of the US ski team. They're the best in the world, and they took care of me when I was an athlete, and I thought like, "Oh, is there any way I can still get in with them as a midlife, person?" And I did, and they're incredible. And, this is a surgery, Chip, where they cut you open and they cut your femur in half and they remove part of your femur and the ball that sits in the socket
Yeah.
and they replace it. And the entire scar is only about 5 inches long.
Wow.
And you walk out of the clinic
Same day.
the same day
Oh, yeah.
on your own power. I
Which
walked out
is
on crutches
shocking.
the same day. And I did a lot of prehab going into it and a lot of rehab coming out, but I feel phenomenal. I'm back on
And you
stuff.
look so good. I mean, honestly, the working a little bit less looks good on you,
Thanks.
and you've
I
been
think
so
it benefits
healthy.
most people.
Yeah, it does. I don't know about me, but we'll see someday. Um,
Show me.
show me. I know, I know.
I'll believe it when I
You know
see
what
it.
I love? I love being in Baja. So, just so lucky. So my home, as you know, was in the center of campus when we first opened. And then my partner Oren just said, like, no more of that. And so we ended up building a home, just a 10-minute walk up the beach. And I have to say that one of my favorite things now in my life is having friends come down for extended periods. Like,
Mhm.
flying internationally, mostly US, you're not going to come down for 2 days. You're going to come down for 3, 4, 5, 6 days. And then having a life where if I'm not teaching, and I'm teaching still a lot, but I'm not teaching sometimes for weeks in a row, which happened in the latter part of last year, and having friends who I can just have meals with,
Mhm.
and I can go hiking. I go to the waterfall hike, and I can
Yeah.
go do all this great stuff. And then I can also have my own space. Because one of the things I've learned as I've gotten older is introversion is like a natural tendency of mine. And I call myself a work trovert because I use work as a form of introversion. It's one of my excuses for really actually not wanting to be social and wanting to have my own space. And I'm a writer, and so I like that too. So, but having friends come and being able to have the leisure of just like having meals together, going for 2 hikes a day, and doing some swimming, and but then also have space to myself. And
Yeah.
so,
I have to interrupt and say how much I love hearing this from you because one of my early experiences with you when we started the academy, and we knew each other for a few years
yeah,
at that point, but we hadn't worked together as closely,
yeah,
is you came to my I think I might have been working in the garage at that point, and you came to me and you go, "I'm going surfing for an hour." And I thought it was like a throwaway kind of statement, like people say, "I'm,
mm,
doing whatever for an hour." And you were back at my desk in an hour,
yeah.
and you had gone surfing for an hour, and your life is that
Oh
discipline,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and I learned that pretty quickly working with you.
Yeah.
So to hear that you're building maybe like some
A little more spontaneity,
yeah,
a little more
some serendipity,
serendipity. Yeah,
maybe
no.
even some languor
Yeah,
to hear.
languor. Ooh, languor. I'm scared. That gives me hives. The art of doing nothing. Yeah, that is the thing that's interesting for me is that being able like if I can listen to some amazing music in the bath while I'm reading a book or even just meditating, that that's my favorite thing to do.
Mm.
I'm actually, the habit stacking, which I know is something you like are intrigued by as well. I recently had a coach, a pretty famous coach, stay with me for 6 days down at my home in Baja over the holidays. And he taught me a bunch of things, but one of the things he taught me was how to create an affirmation statement of 24 different categories of my life. I know, it sounds crazy. 24 different categories of my life, affirmation statement, and then you feed it into this Speechify app that is like an AI with your voice, and it reads it back to you in
Mm.
your own voice. And so you can constantly be changing the doc without having to like record a new episode. And so what I do now that I love is I spend 10 minutes every morning listening to Ennio Morricone, the composer and songwriter, his music while stretching,
Mhm.
because that's something I need to do
Sure.
because I just don't do it. And I didn't have a way to do it. And I had a way to do it, but I just wasn't giving it the time. But I listened to this 10-minute affirmation every morning. So yes, I don't know how that relates to having languishing life, but it definitely relates to how do you curate your life in such a way that you build ritual into it.
Mm.
And, we I love that Lee Johnson here on the ranch, who's literally in the room right next to where we're doing this right now. He's doing a little horse work with some of our cohort today. He talks about Malidoma Some
Yeah.
and the fact that the difference between a routine and ritual is that in a ritual, you're willing to be altered. And so, how do you take something that you want to ritualize and then feed it in. For me, when it comes to my shower every morning, I say my 3 prayers and my 6 mantras every morning in the shower, and because I stack it on the habit. So I just think, yes, I'm very disciplined and I'm very segmented in my time. But the thing that is, like, most important to me is the Sunday Sabbath, and
Mhm.
I try not to do a lot of emailing on Sunday. I try to go for very long walks on Sunday. I try to meditate on Sunday. I try not to see many people on Sunday.
Yeah.
So, okay, that was enough on me. Let's go back to you.
Well, what I find is interesting, as you said, I'm kind of reclaiming a little bit more of time, a little less work time, a little more lifetime. And we've been in this bubble for years, right? We
Yeah,
all share a common language. We love ritual. We'll sit in circle and go to the third vault quite
explain what the
easily.
third vault is.
Again, back to Aaron Taylor,
Yeah.
our friend Aaron Taylor, who taught us that vault 1 is just their facts and figures.
Mhm.
Yeah, Christine, I'm 56.
Yeah.
And then the second vault is kind of our cocktail talk or our shtick, the way that, we kind of
Story of yeah,
stories we
yeah,
tell.
yeah.
And then the third vault is what's real for us, what's really going on right now. And we created quite intentionally, I think, a workplace and a culture where third vault is welcome.
Mhm.
And in real life, in default world,
Yeah.
it's not welcome. We worry about
Being judged, we worry about what might come out of our mouth that,
right,
like, we don't even know.
right, or being an imposition
Yeah,
on people,
yeah,
even not just the judgment part, but like I don't want to throw up my emotions all over
yeah,
this person, or
yeah,
we're here having a nice drink or
yeah.
whatever. So I think we created this place where it's okay to be authentic and and we're not afraid to have real conversations, and I think that's a lot of the joy of the MEA experience is
Mm,
people realize they can show up as themselves authentically, and it will only deepen the connection that they have to other
yeah.
people, which is inverse, I think,
Mhm.
to how the real world.
Isn't it interesting, speaking of Dacker and the workshop that you were in December, that, in Dacker Keltner's book, Awe, which came out 3 years ago, he studied globally, how awe is experienced in different cultures, and there was this 8 common pathways to awe, and number 3 on the list was nature, which almost all of us would have said, like, "Oh, that's number 1." No, it
Yeah.
was number 3. But number 1 and number 2 on the list are something that are pro-social that MEA is all about. So do
Yeah.
you wanna talk about both of those?
Sure. I mean, moral beauty.
Moral beauty is number 1 on the list.
Yeah, and as a side note, I actually just went and did, I was hired by the company, The North Face, to be a speaker at their athlete summit, and so traveled down with a couple hundred of the really the best athletes in the world,
Mm,
and their office chip is the outdoors, right?
yeah.
Jim Morrison is a North Face athlete. He's the guy that just summited and skied Everest.
Okay, I thought he was the guy who died from the Doors, but okay.
No, no, this is a much more famous Jim
Okay.
Morrison. I mean, unbelievable. The things that these people do every day is just
Yeah.
unbelievable. And when I lead sessions around awe, I always try to harvest the 8th
Mm,
pathways. What do you think?
mm,
And harvest it from a room. And you've done the same, right? It is always nature. It's
yeah.
almost always nature.
Is what people think is number 1.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could not get a room of 200 athletes who work in the most beautiful natural environments in the world every day to say nature.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I couldn't
Interesting.
wait to discuss this with Dacker.
Oh,
We
wow.
had such a good spice about that, but, yeah, they were everywhere, all over the map except for nature, and I was finally like, "Where do you guys work?
S
Where do you do your job?"
but let's go back to moral beauty because so what you were just describing in terms of third vault and the idea of people speaking from essence
Yeah,
and showing up compassionate and courageous
sure.
and with
Authentic.
equanimity and with authenticity. Moral beauty, we're in awe when we see people who elevate us and
Right,
feel like if that person can be that way, maybe I can too.
right. I mean, I think that Dacker's definition is when we witness acts of courage, kindness, or generosity.
Yeah.
It creates that sense of awe in us, right? So,
Yeah.
you know, whether it's good trouble or, just an act of kindness that changes our perception of the world,
Mhm.
moral beauty. And I do think that what you allowed me to do with the early creation of MEA, the way that we set it up to be a just workplace
Mm.
and a just partner in the community,
Yeah.
people recognized the moral beauty
Mm.
of the way that we did business, and I think that those 2 pieces work together, the curriculum and the importance of reframing aging and helping people understand the stage of life,
Mhm.
coupled with the way that we did it, is what made that offering so very powerful.
Number 2 on the list.
Collective
Like
effervescence,
yes.
um,
Explain what that is.
that is that moment where we dissolve, but we're still aware of ourselves, right?
Mhm.
So Dacker also covered this in that week in December. The difference between collective effervescence or awe and bliss is bliss, we've lost sense of self.
Mm.
In awe, we retain sense of self, but we have that same kind of
Oh, interesting.
right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
because when I think about collective effervescence, whether it's like dancing in a crowd,
Yeah.
and I feel
Mhm.
gone, but it's not. I'm not
Mhm.
completely gone or I'm in bliss.
Yeah.
So collective
You
effervescence.
feel almost like you're in sync.
Yes,
There's an attunement that's going
right.
on. Yeah.
There's the fizz,
Yeah.
right? So at your 55th birthday party,
Yes.
it's one of like my ultimate collective effervescent moments. We had Michael Franti concert, private concert. We were all dressed in white. We're in a beautiful place, just dancing our heads out. And I remember we'd set up kind of like there was this grassy area. There's about 130 of us, right? And we'd put out little blankets. And Jay, who was his right hand man for such a
Yeah.
long time and probably
Yeah.
the highest energy human
Yeah.
I've ever been around, Jay and Michael walked up and they looked at the setup. And Jay's like, "What are those blankets for? They think they're gonna sit?" Right? And we danced for hours, and
Yes,
there
you
was a
did.
moment where it just felt like this electric current moved through the crowd, and I knew before he said it that we were all going in the pool.
We
Do you
did.
remember that? Oh, it was like I read Michael's mind or
Yeah.
something because he didn't to my memory, didn't say anything. It was like he and Jay looked at each other, and maybe they looked at the pool, and we were all so
We were so sync. We were in
so
so
yeah,
in sync. You know,
and it was like this body,
yeah.
130 of
Yeah.
us
We all
jumped in the
cool.
pool.
Yeah. Yeah, and thankfully, there was no electric current in the pool at the time.
Well said, well said.
But we had our own vitality, that conduit that was sort of
Yeah.
holding us together, and so, I mean, I think that both of those I remember when Dacker the book was coming out, and Dacker said to me, "Do you know that the top 2 things, in my book are they're so much what MEA is about."
Mm,
This deep sense of the connection of with other humans and and the ability to show up with our best selves and to
mm.
be mirrored by others who are enlightened witnesses for us. So last I have 2 last questions. One is, what's it been like for you to witness all of these people who've been, sometimes come with broken wings or needing to be humbled,
Mm,
full of ego, and then over the course of the week, sometimes with men in
mm.
particular, like realizing like, wow, I've been wearing a mask. What and are there any stories you wanna tell, without necessarily using names?
I think the most beautiful thing is just watching over and over again people realizing that they can just be themselves,
Mm,
right? And
mhm.
that I mean, we've seen it. We've seen it for 8 years. People fall in love with each other. I never wanna lead the week that way. I never wanna promise that. But
No.
when we sit in that room with them on the first night and look around and we tell them that they're important strangers,
Mhm.
and we know, again, from having done the work
Yeah.
over and over and over again, what incredible bonds are going to be forged during that week. And that's almost more important than anything that we could put in a workbook, right? We have designed for connection. And as we know from the longitudinal Harvard study on adult
Mm,
development, the most important metric
mm,
of our longevity into our 80s, our health and vitality into our 80s, is the strength of our social connections in our 50s,
yep.
right? And we have engineered that. And you and I have heard that from
Yeah.
how many experts who have come through who've been like, how did you do this?
Yeah.
How did and we're like, luck, luck and serendipity and instinct and listening to a lot of really smart people
Yeah.
who came through. So
Mm,
I think the learning really is that, especially as I dip back into outside of our love bubble more and more as I'm spending more time traveling and reconnecting with other people outside of our universe is so many people don't know that.
mm,
So many
yeah.
people haven't been granted the grace to be in community
Mm,
where their whole self is welcomed.
yeah.
So there's a lot of protectionism and a lot of joking and joshing and,
Yeah.
which is fun. Lightheartedness is fun. I like it, but
Yeah.
I also wish more people knew how well received they would be if they were just
Yeah.
open.
Yeah, there's a few people who've gone to some of the year-long midlife transition schools at Stanford and Harvard, and they're beautiful programs. They're very expensive, both in terms of time and money, and they're well regarded. And they have said to me, many, there's like a half dozen or more people have said, like, "Wow, in just less than a week's time, I got to know everybody in this cohort better than I got to know a group of people who were high functioning, very successful folks
Mhm.
for a year." And that's essential. I mean, getting to know people from the inside out. People do not see each other's LinkedIn profiles. No one knows each other's last names. We've had a billionaire or two who, like, nobody knew they were a billionaire.
Yeah.
And like at the end of the week, it's like, oh, okay, you're that person. I've heard of you.
Right.
But it's just the sense of, like, there's a real deep sense that we're all in this together, and no one is better than anyone else in the room, and we're all there. I don't know. The curiosity is the opposite of judgment, and so to be able to get to a place where we're curious
Mm.
about each other. So, I'm curious about your wisdom bumper sticker.
Uh,
If there was to be a wisdom bumper sticker that defines something you've learned along the way and the
this
origin
was
story.
this one came into MEA with me, so I don't, you know, the bumper sticker that has kind of served me really well, I think, sadly came out of an experience I won't talk about too much because the origin story would be,
Mm,
really transparent, but always get it in writing
mm.
and only work with people that you don't think you need it in writing.
Love it. That's a good
That
one.
has been really solid guidepost for me.
Yes. Well, you are imprinted on my heart. And I love you very much,
I love you
and
too.
and MEA would not exist without you, and you were just this you had such stamina. I used to say, I hope you don't mind me talking about it, you are a power bar and a mezcal shot, and Jeff was a soufflé, and I don't know what the hell I am, but
You're an everlasting gobstopper.
whatever that is. I was, "Oh, that's from the Willy Wonka? Is
Yeah,
that right?
yep.
Oh, yeah."
It's like the most tenacious candy ever. You can't beat it.
Yeah. Okay, I'll be that.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you for being on this journey with me, this continuing journey with me, with MEA. And thank you for having such a powerful influence on so many people. One of the things we talk about at MEA is the idea of moving from return on investment, ROI, to ripple of impact. And you, my dear, have had a huge ripple of impact on so many people.
Thank you. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously right back at you.
Yeah. Love you.
Love you.
I love that woman, Christine Sperber. I mean, my gosh, I feel like we have been both to heaven and hell together. We've experienced some of the challenges of COVID and starting something new that nobody's ever created before, and my cancer journey and how that affected everybody, and the changes of, the teams and everything else. She's just, she's been a delight to work with, and as I said, she's the best experienced designer I know in the world, and she's also one of the best culture creators I know. So if there were 3 lessons I learned from her, number 1 is the African proverb, that she mentioned, which Jeff and Christine and I, would say a lot, but frankly, it was mostly meant for me. If you want to go far if you wanna go fast, go alone. If you wanna go far, go together. And as someone who is a sort of fast, go alone kinda guy, I have my ideas, I wanna go do them, I wake up early in the morning, I'm, like, raring to go. And because I'm also in a position of power, being the primary investor in, this really the sole financial investor in MEA, I at times had to learn from Christine and Jeff that letting them make sure they knew what was going on in my mind so that we had a conversation around it, and maybe have a collaborative decision on something before Chip just forges forward. That was a big lesson for me. Appreciated that she recited that African proverb again because that's one that have to remember in all of my life. So if you're somebody who tends to be a lone wolf, keep that one in mind. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Secondly, I learned a lot from her about not being afraid to be idealistic. This idea of karmic capitalism, what goes around comes around. When I approached Christine 8 years ago, more than 8 years ago now, to create MEA, her first idea around it was not, okay, where's the content going to come from? But it was really, how does this serve the local community? How can MEA be a positive influence in the Pescadero, Todos Santos community? And those roots, that soul has been there from the start. And do we always get it right? No, but most of the time we get it really right. And it's part of the reason why we have such a beautiful culture. So idealism, which is, at times, in jaded times, idealism can sort of feel like not a need to have, but a nice to have. But for Christine, it is a need to have. And I really appreciate how much she held me accountable for my idealism because I'm a very idealistic person too, but then I'm also very practical. And so she was a really great guidepost for me around my own idealism. And then finally, I think the third point would be just the idea of the experience that's created at MEA. The idea that you can actually go and experience awe. Sometimes when people feel like, "Oh, I wanna go experience awe. I wanna go to Yosemite and see Half Dome," or, "I wanna go to Burning Man and take psychedelics and experience spiritual, enlightenment," or you wanna go late night dancing. The reality is that the things that we do at MEA, the sort of the methodology, the magic behind having now had over 350 public workshops and nearly 100 private retreats, we have created a magic and around two key elements of awe. How do you help people to live up to their best? Through moral beauty. So the idea of people speaking from the third vault, and in so doing, giving the freedom and liberation to others to do the same. And then how do you create that palpable experience that you're still, a singular person, but you are connected deeply and energetically with the people around you? That is one of the reasons why MEA continues to have people. There's a Ron who's I hope he's listening to this, who has been to MEA so many times. He was just in MEA over the holidays. And I said, Ron, how many weeks have you been here to a workshop or to one of our extended refresh experiences? He's been to MEA over the course of the last 8 years, 49 weeks. He's certainly our best customer. But then he was sitting next to Philomena, and Philomena said, "Oh, I've been here 20 weeks." So part of the reason people come back, part of the reason that MEA has this magic is because of that awe, that moral beauty, that collective effervescence that you can tap into and rely upon based upon coming to either one of our campuses in Santa Fe or Baja. So thanks. I hope this wasn't too much of a marketing, episode for MEA. But when you talk with someone that you've created a business with, and you've suffered through the good times and the bad times with, of course, we were going to talk about MEA. So we'll see you soon. I look forward to seeing you on the next Midlife Chrysalis.
Thanks for listening to the Midlife Chrysalis. This show is produced by Midlife Media. If you enjoyed this episode, help us spread the word by subscribing and leaving a review on your favorite platform.